She told me we needed to fix the faucet. That's how it all started. One leaky kitchen faucet. We were standing in our kitchen one Saturday morning. I was eating cereal, still in boxers and a t-shirt. Jess had her laptop open at the counter like she usually did, flipping between Pinterest and whatever boutique furniture site she'd gotten obsessed with that week. She glanced over at the sink, gave an exaggerated sigh, and said, "Babe, seriously, can we please just call someone? It's been dripping for weeks." She was right. I'd meant to get around to it, but I work long hours, project manager at a local construction firm, and sometimes when I get home, fixing a leak is the last thing on my mind. So I said sure. Go ahead and call someone. I didn't think twice. The plumber came 3 days later. I remember walking in that evening, exhausted, my boots still muddy from a site visit. She was in a sundress, one of those floral ones that she used to wear when we first started dating. And I remember thinking, that's odd. She usually changed into sweatpants by the time I got home. I heard tools clinking in the kitchen. Laughter. A man's voice. That's when I met Travis. He was tall, way taller than me, with a beard and those rolled-up sleeves that guys on TV wear. He looked more like a model pretending to be a plumber than an actual plumber. Jess introduced us, said he was just finishing up. She had that same smile she always gave people when she wanted them to like her. I shook his hand. Firm grip. Greasy palms. "Faucet's all set," he said. "Your wife's been a great help." I didn't think anything of that line at the time. Jess beamed. "He's amazing. He even showed me how to replace the cartridge if it ever happens again." I thanked him, paid him, and that was that. Except it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, I started to notice little things. She started doing her makeup before I got home, started locking her phone again, even though she'd stopped doing that years ago. I'd see her texting and smiling, then quickly flipping her phone over when I walked into the room. I'm not the jealous type, or at least I didn't think I was. But my gut started twisting in ways I hadn't felt since I was a teenager. That kind of anxious, gnawing feeling you get when something doesn't sit right. Then, 2 weeks after that faucet got fixed, she told me she was going to Target to pick up a few things. I offered to come along. She hesitated, just for a second, and said no. She wouldn't be long. 3 hours passed. No texts, no calls. When she came home, she had 2 shopping bags. One had a candle and some face wash. The other had nothing in it. Empty. Like she just grabbed a bag from the trunk to make it look like she bought more. And that was the moment something broke open in my brain. I didn't say anything that night, but I started watching, paying attention, keeping track. And what I found, God, I wish I hadn't. I didn't go full paranoid right away. But I had this old security camera in the garage from when I used to tinker with smart home setups. Just one of those little indoor cams with motion detection and cloud storage. I'd never even mounted it. But that night, I dusted it off, set it up on top of the pantry cabinet in the kitchen, blended right in with the junk she never touched, and angled it toward the entryway and living room. It wasn't about catching her. Not yet. I told myself I was just being cautious, that I'd delete everything later and feel silly for even trying. The first 2 days, nothing unusual. She went about her day, cooked, watched shows, texted, though never when I was watching the camera feed. She didn't know it was there. That part still sits strange with me, like I betrayed something too. I don't know. But on the 4th day, I caught it. 3:17 p.m. Tuesday. I was on a break at work and got a motion alert. I pulled it up on my phone, expecting to see maybe the cat knocking something over. Instead, I saw him. Travis, the plumber. He was back in my house. No tools. Just wearing jeans and a white t-shirt, like he'd just stopped by. She let him in like she'd been expecting him. They talked in the kitchen. She poured him a drink. Wine. Middle of the afternoon. They sat close, too close, on the couch. And then I saw it. She touched his knee. Just lightly, like it was natural. Like she'd done it before. That's when my heart started beating like a drum in my chest. I couldn't stop watching. I should have turned it off. I should have driven straight home. But I didn't do either. Instead, I watched for 37 long minutes. They kissed, right there on our couch, 6 feet away from where we'd opened Christmas presents the year before. I didn't see anything beyond that. She led him down the hallway toward our bedroom, and the camera didn't reach that far. But I didn't need to see more. I knew. My wife was cheating on me with the plumber she hired to fix our sink. When I got home that night, everything felt surreal. She kissed me like nothing happened, asked me how my day was, made us dinner, told me she loved me. I wanted to scream, but instead, I smiled. That's the moment I decided I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to collect every shred of evidence I could. And when I had everything, when I had it all lined up, texts, footage, receipts, I was going to destroy her life the way she was secretly destroying mine. I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. The hardest part of all this wasn't watching the betrayal unfold. It was pretending like I didn't know. For almost a month after I saw that footage, I played the role of loving husband. I smiled when she smiled. I kissed her goodnight. I told her I loved her, words that felt like splinters in my throat. And every morning, I left for work with a pit in my stomach, wondering if Travis would be back the moment I was gone. I started keeping a private journal. Every time I caught something, an excuse that didn't add up, a call she stepped outside to take, a new outfit I'd never seen before, I logged it. Dates, times, what she said, how she acted. The more I wrote, the more I realized this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment affair. She wasn't drunk and impulsive. This was planned, sustained, rehearsed. One day, I noticed she had a second phone charger plugged in beside her side of the bed. We only had 2 phones. When I asked about it casually, she said, "Oh, I got a new work phone. Didn't I tell you?" She hadn't. So while she was in the shower that night, I checked the charger port. It had dust on it. She didn't have a second phone. She was just planting a story for something she knew I might stumble on later. That's how methodical she was. It chilled me. I started digging deeper. Her laptop was password protected. Always had been. But I knew her old passwords from years back and tried a few. The third one worked. I found a folder hidden inside another folder, buried in her downloads. It was labeled Home Reno Ideas. Inside, screenshots of texts. From him. Explicit stuff. Not graphic, but enough. Suggestive jokes. Pictures of the 2 of them smiling in my house, in my backyard, in our bed. I even found a shot of him in my bathrobe, the one she bought me last Christmas. She had saved it all, like she wanted to look back on it later. I didn't cry. I thought I would. But it was like my body had gone past sadness into this cold, focused fury. I started planning. I reached out to a divorce attorney and scheduled a consultation under a fake name. Told them everything, what I'd seen, what I'd recorded, and what I wanted. Here's where it gets technical. We live in a no-fault divorce state, but there's still an angle. Adultery can affect asset distribution and custody in certain circumstances, especially if it can be proven that marital resources were used during the affair. And they were. She paid Travis from our joint account. I pulled the transaction. $285.54. And then 2 more follow-up appointments she said were touch-ups on the faucet. One of them she claimed was because the handle felt loose again. I told the attorney I wanted to get everything I could legally. Not to be vindictive, but because I deserved better. Because if she was going to turn our marriage into a lie, she wasn't going to walk away with half of everything we built. That weekend, she suggested we take a short trip together. Just us, she said. We've both been stressed. I nodded, told her I'd look into it. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and went off to browse hotels. And all I could think about was how many times she had probably kissed me with his breath still on her. I didn't expect Travis to be dumb enough to leave a trail. I assumed Jess would be the one who slipped up, but he made the mistake. It was a Saturday afternoon. Jess said she was heading to her friend Carla's to help plan a baby shower. I knew Carla wasn't pregnant. I also knew Carla was out of town. I'd seen her post photos from Miami that morning, so I waited. At 2:12 p.m., Travis pulled into our driveway. Not hers. Ours. What he didn't know, what neither of them knew, is that I'd installed another camera. This one I placed outside, hidden in the bushes by the porch. I caught his face, his car, his license plate, clear as day. He walked up to the house carrying a 6-pack and what looked like a takeout bag. Knocked twice, didn't even try to be discreet. Like he belonged there. She opened the door wearing shorts and a t-shirt she only ever wore to bed. He walked right in. No hesitation. No looking around. Not even a glance at the camera. That video would later become Exhibit A. I waited until the next day to check the footage, because I knew if I watched it live, I might do something stupid. But once I saw it, I knew what I had to do. I printed screenshots, saved clips to encrypted storage, logged the time, the date, the lie she told me, and then I did something I didn't think I'd ever do. I called Travis's employer, not to blow up his life, but to verify something. I pretended to be a potential client and asked about their texts. Is Travis still with you guys? The tall one with the beard. The woman on the phone said, no, Travis left last fall. He does private work now. Why? You looking for him? Left last fall, but Jess told me she found him through the company just a few weeks ago. Another lie. So not only was she cheating with him, she was seeking him out after the first job. This wasn't just a spark between two strangers. This was intentional. She tracked him down after he left his job and invited him back in. That broke something in me. She wasn't bored. She wasn't lost. She chose this. That night, I confronted her, but not with the evidence. Not yet. I asked about the baby shower. She spun a whole story, balloons, napkins, choosing colors for the centerpieces. Said Carla was glowing. I asked, did Travis help pick out the colors too? She blinked, just for a second, and then she smiled. What? Nothing, I said. Just thought I saw him driving in our neighborhood. She shook her head. No, probably just someone else. He drives a pretty common truck. I went to bed that night with that same twisted feeling in my gut. But now I had more than suspicion. I had a plan. The next week, I met with my attorney again, showed them everything. They agreed. This was shaping up to be a strong case. Not just for divorce, but for an argument of marital misconduct, misuse of joint assets, and possibly even intentional infliction of emotional distress. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to take her to court. The hardest part about building a case like this isn't the legal side. It's keeping your emotions in check while you pretend everything's normal. Because every morning, I'd wake up next to her. I'd make her coffee. She'd kiss me goodbye. And the whole time, I'd be cataloging every word she said like I was preparing for trial. Because I was. My attorney, Claire, told me to be methodical. Don't tip your hand. The moment she knows you know, she'll start covering tracks. So I played dumb. And while she went about her cheating, I went to work, documenting. I dug up bank statements. She'd Venmo'd him 3 separate times, labeling them with fake reasons like drain snake and pipe fittings. Once, she even wrote, kid's birthday gift. We don't have kids. I got call logs. Found dozens of calls made during times she told me she was out shopping, running errands, or at yoga. One day, she told me she was at Target, and I called Target's store line, had them page her. No answer. Later, she swore she must have just missed it. Around this time, I decided to bring someone else in, my brother, Mark. Mark is sharp. No nonsense. He's also the kind of guy who doesn't say much until he's angry, and then he really doesn't stop. I told him everything. Laid out the footage, the texts, the transactions. He sat quiet for a long time after I finished. Then he said, she's gonna fight you. Especially if she knows she's guilty. People like her don't go down quiet. He was right. So we set a trap. Jess's birthday was coming up. I suggested a dinner party at the house. Something low-key, just a few friends. I invited Mark and his wife, a few mutuals. She lit up when I mentioned it. I could see her already planning what she'd wear, how she'd make herself the center of attention. What she didn't know was that one of our guests, a quiet friend of Mark's named Kevin, wasn't really a friend. He was a private investigator. Licensed. Legit. Claire said it would help to have a professional gather anything I couldn't, and Kevin did not disappoint. 2 days before the party, he followed her. She said she was getting her hair done. She wasn't. She met Travis at a diner just outside town. Kevin took photos of them holding hands. Her feeding him off her plate. Him brushing her hair back behind her ear. She looked happy, radiant, even, like she was in love. And then they left together, driving to a motel off Highway 38. Checked in at 1:43 p.m. Left at 3:09 p.m. Kevin captured the entire timeline. That was it. That was the last piece I needed. The morning of her birthday, she was glowing. She wore a red dress I hadn't seen before, curled her hair like she used to when we first started dating, hummed as she moved around the house. I watched her from the hallway, this woman I had shared a life with for 7 years, and I felt hollow. Not anger, not even sadness. Just this cold, detached numbness. By evening, the house was spotless. Dinner was in the oven, wine on the counter. She kept checking her reflection in the microwave, adjusting her necklace. She was expecting compliments, praise. She had no idea that by the time the night ended, the mask would fall. At 7 p.m., people started arriving. Mark, his wife, a couple of friends who didn't know anything, and Kevin, posing as Mark's quiet buddy from work. Jess laughed, poured drinks, played host like nothing in the world was wrong. Then, halfway through dessert, I cleared my throat and said, "Can I make a quick toast?" She looked thrilled, probably thought I was about to get emotional about her birthday. She even touched my hand. I stood, lifted my glass, and said, "To truth." The room went still. She smiled nervously. To the things we think are hidden but never are. To faucets that leak, and people who do, too. She blinked. I turned to Kevin. "You've got the file?" He reached into his coat and placed a manila folder on the table. I slid it to Jess. She didn't open it at first, just stared at it like it might explode. "Go ahead," I said. "Read it." Mark stood beside me, arms folded. Jess slowly opened it. She flipped through the pages. Photos, printouts, screenshots. Then she froze on the motel photo. Her mouth parted slightly. A sound tried to come out, but nothing did. "Happy birthday," I said. She slammed the folder shut. "You've been spying on me?" "Don't," I said, voice flat. "Don't make your betrayal about my reaction to it." She looked around the room, realizing everyone had seen it. The photos, the evidence, her lies. Then she did what cowards do. She tried to lie again. "It's not what it looks like." Mark laughed out loud. "You were at a motel for over an hour. You fed him at a diner like you were his wife." Jess's voice was high-pitched now. "This is insane. This is entrapment. You're manipulating me. You had a PI follow me." "Yeah," I said calmly, "because I knew the truth would break your performance." And it had. She stormed out, left her own birthday party, sped off in her car. I told everyone they could go. The party was over. And now, the real work began. The very next morning, she came back like nothing happened, walked in the front door, sat on the couch, and said, "We need to talk." I stayed standing. "About what? The motel? The folder of evidence? Or the part where you looked me in the eye for months and lied every single day?" She didn't answer, just rubbed her temples like she was the one in pain. "I think we both made mistakes," she said. That's when I realized she wasn't sorry. She was strategizing. In her mind, this was now a negotiation. She thought if she could spin it right, play the sympathy card, maybe cry a little, I'd back down. But I'd already filed the divorce papers. The moment she left that party, I sent everything to my attorney. Claire moved fast. We filed with all documentation: infidelity, financial misuse, emotional distress. Everything was time-stamped, organized, admissible. When Jess found out the papers had already been filed, she flipped. "You blindsided me," she yelled in the living room. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. That's psychological abuse." I said nothing, just handed her the papers. She threw them on the floor. Then came the countermoves. She got a lawyer, one of those bulldog types who think yelling makes them effective. They filed a response accusing me of being controlling, emotionally distant, and spying on her out of paranoia. Her lawyer even tried to claim Travis was just a friend helping her through a rough emotional patch. Claire picked that apart like tissue paper. "Is it normal," she said during one preliminary mediation, "for a married woman to regularly check into motels with a plumber from Craigslist?" The mediator actually laughed. Then came the asset battle. Jess tried to argue that she was entitled to half of everything: the house, the savings, even my retirement fund. Said she'd sacrificed her own career to support mine, which was funny, considering she'd quit her job 3 years ago and hadn't worked since. But remember those Venmo transactions? The ones where she paid Travis from our joint account? Those were key. Claire argued, successfully, that Jess used marital resources to fund an extramarital affair. And in our state, that's grounds for unequal distribution of assets. Meaning, She walked away with less than half. But the most dramatic part came during the deposition. We had Travis subpoenaed. He tried to avoid it, of course. But Kevin, our PI, tracked him down. And when he showed up, he looked rough, like a guy who didn't know what he was walking into. He admitted to the affair within 10 minutes. Didn't even try to deny it. When asked how long it had been going on, he said, "I don't know, since February maybe." That was 5 months earlier. Jess buried her face in her hands. I sat there still, cold. And for the first time, I think she finally understood. This wasn't going to be a slap on the wrist. She was going to lose. The trial was set for early March. I remember the air that morning. It was cold, crisp, the kind that stings your lungs a little when you breathe in too deep. Fitting, I thought. Felt like the last breath of winter before everything changed. Claire and I met outside the courthouse. She was calm as ever, hair tied back, a stack of binders under one arm. I was quiet, not nervous, just ready. Jess arrived 10 minutes later with her lawyer. She wore a gray suit jacket over a dress I hadn't seen before. No makeup, no smile. She wouldn't look at me. We were called into a medium-sized courtroom. Nothing dramatic, just beige walls, creaky chairs, and the low murmur of other cases being heard down the hall. Ours was scheduled for a half-day session. The judge, a stern woman in her late 50s, reviewed both parties' claims. Then Claire stepped up. Her opening was simple. "Your Honor, this is not a case of two people growing apart. This is a case of deliberate deception, of marital funds misused to sustain an affair, of emotional injury hidden under the guise of normalcy." She laid out the timeline like clockwork. The day Travis first came, the Venmo transactions, the motel visit, the camera footage, the photos, the witness testimony, including Kevin's affidavit and Mark's statement. When it was Jess's lawyer's turn, he tried to paint a picture of emotional neglect. He claimed I worked long hours, had emotionally withdrawn, and left Jess isolated and vulnerable. Then he tried to shift focus. "Is it ethical," he asked, "for a husband to secretly install surveillance cameras in his own home?" The judge interrupted him. "Was the plaintiff's property being used during the affair?" "Yes, Your Honor." Then I'd say his caution was justified. It was quiet after that. Jess's lawyer whispered something to her. She just shook her head. The judge recessed for 30 minutes to review the full documentation. We waited outside the courtroom in tense silence. When we were called back in, the judge didn't waste time. She ruled in my favor. The house, mine. The joint savings, 75% to me. No spousal support. Jess was ordered to vacate the property within 21 days. And then came the final line, one that stuck with me. This court finds sufficient evidence of calculated deception on the part of the respondent. The plaintiff's actions were not only justified, they were necessary. That was it. Just like that, the marriage was legally over. Jess didn't say a word as we left the courtroom. She walked right past me without a glance. Mark clapped me on the back outside and said, "You did it, man. You really did it." I didn't respond right away. I just stood there on the courthouse steps, staring out into the bright gray afternoon. It was over. She moved out on a Thursday. I watched from the upstairs window as she carried boxes into a car that didn't belong to her, probably borrowed from a friend. She didn't look up once, didn't knock, didn't say goodbye. And I didn't go down to say anything, either. The house felt strange after she left. Not empty, exactly. Just unfamiliar. Like someone had rearranged the furniture in my life while I wasn't looking. I kept catching little reminders of her. A single bobby pin on the bathroom sink, a scarf in the closet, a voice memo still saved on the kitchen echo. It took me days to clear it all. But once it was done, once the last trace of her was out, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. People started reaching out. Carla, her pregnant friend, called me one evening. She'd heard what happened. Said she felt awful. Said Jess had lied to her too, used her name to cover her tracks. "She's not the person I thought she was," Carla said quietly. "And I'm sorry. You didn't deserve any of this." Even people I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me. Turns out, once the court documents were filed and sealed, word got around. People talk in a small town. And the story spread. Affair, the motel, the camera footage, the court ruling. Some exaggerated it, I'm sure. But at the core, the truth was undeniable. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate, but it was satisfying in a quiet, grounded way. Then, 3 weeks after she moved out, I got a message from Travis. No greeting, no apology, just this. Hope you're happy. She lost everything. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed out one sentence. She lost what she chose to throw away. And I blocked him. A few days later, Mark and I had a beer on the back deck. Spring was starting to creep in. The grass was turning green again. He looked at me and asked, "You ever miss her?" I thought about it. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but the version of her I married, the woman I thought she was. And I said, "Sometimes I miss who I thought she was. But that person never existed." He nodded. "That's the hardest part, isn't it?" Yeah. It had been 2 months since the court ruling when I saw her again. I was at the grocery store, of all places, just grabbing eggs and bread, wearing an old hoodie and beat-up sneakers. I wasn't thinking about her at all. I'd finally gotten to a place where she wasn't the first thought when I woke up, or the last before I went to sleep. I turned the corner near the frozen foods, and there she was. Jess. She looked thinner, paler. Her hair was darker than I remembered, maybe dyed. She was alone, clutching a basket with only 2 things inside, wine and frozen lasagna. We locked eyes. She hesitated for a second, then walked straight over to me. No hello, no smile, just, "You destroyed me." I blinked, took a second, then said, "No, you did that to yourself." She looked around, like she couldn't believe we were standing there in public. "You didn't have to take everything," she said, voice low, bitter. "You wanted me to suffer. I wanted the truth to matter," I said. "That's all I ever wanted." She scoffed, then looked down at her basket, like she'd forgotten what she came in for. "You know," she muttered, "he left too." I didn't say anything, just let the silence do the talking. Then she looked up again. I suddenly wet. I made a mistake. It hung there for a moment, and I could have said a lot of things. I could have reminded her of every lie, every smug look, every time she left the house pretending she was someone she wasn't. I could have told her that her mistake wasn't one moment, it was hundreds of choices stacked like bricks in a wall between us. But instead, I just said, "Yeah, you did." And I walked away.